Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when and where you are watching from. Welcome to the OSP cleanup training delivered by Osha Safety Consult Nigeria Limited, authorized training partners, Osha Academy. So to begin, let's look at what the Osha standard says about the oil cleanup. Now, basically, when workers go for oil cleanup, there is tendency for them to be exposed to hazard from oil byproducts, talking about the chemical component of the oil that could be hazardous, you understand, as well as dispersants, detergents, and degreasers that are used in the cleaning process. All this could be hazardous to the workers as well. Then drowning. Basically, when we talk about oil spill, we are talking about oil coming in contact with water bodies such as the sea, the ocean, the rivers, and all that. You understand? Now, in as much as there are ocean rivers involved, there is tendency for workers to be drowned if proper precautions are not taken. Then also heat illness, talking about maybe the PPE that some of these workers wear. Some of the PPEs could be very heavy and carry a lot of heat. Now, with this kind of PPE that carries heat over a period of time, there is tendency for workers to develop things like rashes and other form of illness as a result of the extreme or temperatures. Then also falls are also hazards are being experienced. Basically, we are talking about oil, so there is tendency for slips to occur, which will slips that will lead to fall and also pose a hazard to the workers as well. Then, as well as encounter with insects, snakes, and other wild species native to the impacted areas. Most of these rivers harbor a lot of dangerous animals, wildlife, and all that. You understand? Even the intertidal areas also carry some kind of hazardous species that could be very, very dangerous to the workers that are working around that site as well. Now, in the sight of all this hazard, the duty of OSHA is to ensure that workers get the appropriate training before engaging in any of this kind of OSP cleanup jobs. And also get the right protective equipment to ensure that they are well protected against any form of hazard that may be associated with the cleanup process. Then also employers' responsibility and workers' right. Now, employers have responsibility under the OSHA Act, and one of that responsibility is that the OSHA Act requires that employers provide a safe and healthful workplace free from any kind of hazards. Understand? They should ensure that before their workers are exposed to any working condition or OSP cleanup condition, it is safe and free from any form of hazard. You understand? So the employers are to ensure that. They also to ensure that the workers acquire the appropriate training before engaging in any form of oil cleanup. And also they are required to provide the right protective equipment for their workers as well. Now, workers are expected to also follow the safety and health rules that are put in place by their employers. It is in their own interest to ensure that they adhere to the rules that are being set by these employers to prevent any form of accident occurring to them and also to save their lives in extreme conditions as well. Then also workers are also encouraged to report hazardous conditions to employers. Understand? Once you notice that any aspect of your job is seem hazardous, it is expected that you report to your supervisor. Now, if after reporting to your supervisor or to the company and the employers do not do anything to try and resolve that issue or fix the problem, you are expected to file a complaint with OSHA and OSHA will take up the case appropriately. So then also, cleanup workers are expected to always ask questions where they are not clear. Do not, out of ignorance, do something that you are not sure of. Always ensure that whatever thing you do, you are sure of the safety of that thing. So, in any case where you are not sure of your safety in carrying out any job, always ensure that you ask questions and you are cleared before you carry on with such job as well. So those are some of the responsibilities also bestowed on employers and some of what are expected of workers in certain conditions as well. Now, introduction to the oil spill cleanup, the health and safety plan. Then also another thing is that the OSHA requires employers to have what they call the health and safety plan, a detailed health and safety plan. OSHA require that all employers have it. Now, the aim of this health and safety plan is to ensure that plans are put in place, procedures are put in place to ensure workers do not get involved in any of the hazards that were listed previously. They are prevented from any of such hazard, and also if any of such hazard should occur or incident should occur, they are also expected to have plan in place to quickly respond to such uh, conditions or situations. You understand? So that's what basically the health and safety plan is all about, to serve as guide for both employers and workers in carrying out their daily operations. You understand? To prevent any form of injury or death. Then also he said the health and safety plan must cover the following: introduction, understand, introducing your company to your workers, the key personnel, the key people that are involved in this or in the sites or in the oil cleanup and all that. Everybody should be well known for their specific duties and rules as well. Then also the hazard assessment. Every hazard associated with the job that is meant to be done, with the cleanup that is meant to be done, should be made known, should be properly assessed, you understand, and made known before jobs are being carried out or cleanups are being carried out. Then also an appropriate training should be given to those that are involved. They should be properly trained as well. Then the right PPE should always be worn, and even the workers should also be trained on how to use all this PPE as well. Then also temperature extremes, like we talked about the use of heavy PPEs that could generate a lot of heat that can be hazardous, you understand. Now companies are to ensure that they have measures to uh, to curb such situations. Measures like, for instance, those that are putting on the PP to do the work, they should have some cooling break at intervals, you understand? At intervals where they will come after working for a while, they come out, take off those PP, receive fresh air, and maybe other measures put in place to ensure that they are well ventilated in the course of their job, to remove any hazard that may be associated with such extreme temperatures. Then also medical surveillance should be put in place, exposure monitoring and air sampling. Now, most of this oil spill or this oil that has spilled on our water bodies, most of them are highly volatile depending on the kind of oil that is being spilled. They mostly contain highly volatile chemicals or substance that evaporate within a short period of time. Now, this evaporated aspect of the oil contain a lot of chemical that could be hazardous, you understand. Now, in such cases, you are not expected to get exposed immediately to an oil spill because of those hazardous chemical that will be evaporating at the early stage of that exposure. And it's expected that before a worker, a oil cleanup worker is a oil spill cleanup worker is exposed to the environment, a proper sampling should be done to ensure that every hazardous chemical that has been emitted into the air is properly cleared off before they are being exposed or allowed to go on to carry their job. You understand? So there should be a proper air sampling to ensure that the air is clean before workers are exposed to such cleanup site as well. Then you have the site control, you have decontamination, all in the health and safety plan. What are the decontamination procedures? You understand? Maybe anybody who is coming out from the cleaning site, they should ensure that before they come in contact with anybody or anything outside that oil cleanup site, they should be properly decontaminated. You understand? Then also emergency response and contingency plans. What are the method or ways put in place to respond to emergencies? Then also emergency action plan as well. What are the action plans in place should in case an incident or an accident occur? What are the immediate response plans that they have in place, as well as confined space entry and spill containment? So these are all the things that are expected by OSHA Academy for employers to include in their health and safety plan. So the OSHA has WOPA standard. Now this is referring to the OSHA hazard waste operation emergency response. Understand? That's the OSHA has WOPA standard is all talking about. It's talking about all emergency response to oil spill, and every of such response and details can be found in the OSHA has WOPA standard. You understand? They also talk about the proper instruction for cleanup workers. Proper instructions for cleanup workers. Training is important. Workers must be trained on the hazard of their jobs in the language they understand. Workers must be trained before they begin OSP response or cleanup. So this is to say training is very, very important. And when carrying out training, ensure that everybody that you are training understand the training that is being given. If possible, explain to them in the language that they will understand more to ensure that whatever it is that is expected, they are well understood by them. You understand? So they should be well trained before they engage in any form of engage in carrying out any form of oil cleanup jobs. You understand? I say all OSP cleanup workers should be trained in the following: an initial briefing utilizing the site safety plan or national incident management system assignment form at the site prior to their participation. There is already a standard for safety plan by the National Incident Management System. Now you have to use this form to also assess the workers prior to their participation to ensure they are clear with every site safety plan. You understand? Then also a briefing on emergency procedure on the site-specific health and safety plan. This is talking about the site-specific, that specific site they are going to work. Every emergency procedure that has been put in place should be briefed to the workers. You understand? Then also introducing the wearing of appropriate PPE, the right PPE to be used for the job should be introduced to them, and they should be trained on how to properly wear them as well. So information on what health hazard from oil and other chemical might be encountered. Now, all the kind of hazard, depending on the kind of oil that is spilled, the hazard associated with those oil, the hazardous chemicals associated with it they should be informed. The workers going to carry out the work should be informed of those hazards to avoid any form of ignorance. You understand? Know what you are going to face so that know how to take caution. Understand? So as a result, all hazardous chemicals from the oils and their effect should be made known to the workers before they go out to do any form of oil cleanup. Then explanation on what duties are to be performed. Understand? What are your rules? What are the different rules assigned to each of the worker? Everybody should understand their role well enough. Understand? Then also understand the chain of command. Know who is in charge. Know who to report the appropriate problem to. Understand? So you should understand all these things. The workers should properly understand all these things before they engage in any form of oil cleanup. Also, instruction on the decontamination procedure to be followed. Every decontamination procedure should be taught or explained to the workers so that they know how to decontaminate themselves to avoid them exposing themselves to other persons and other materials that could lead to different kind of health issues and other forms of hazard as well. So next we talk about the hazardous materials and hazards communication. So specific hazard communication training is required on the hazard from the oil and from any hazard material being used. This is basically talking about training on how to identify specific hazards that are found in the oil. Now, as a oil spill cleanup worker, you should be able to you should be trained on how to identify the various chemicals that are found in the various kind of oil and the effect of those particular chemicals. You understand? So you should know how to identify. You should be trained on how to identify those chemicals or hazards that are peculiar to specific or different kinds of oil, and also the hazards that are specific to the materials that you are using for your cleanup. For instance, your dispersant, your detergents, they all contain chemicals. And some of these chemicals could be some of these chemicals could be hazardous. You should understand the chemical content of those materials you are using, the hazards involved, as well as the effect of those hazards. So you should be trained on these things to be able to identify specific hazard associated with the kind of oil as well as the materials that you are using for the cleanup as well. Then also safety data sheet must be available for all hazardous material. Every material that is being used has a tendency of being hazardous should have a proper safety data sheet, proper information on the hazard written on it. Understand the information of that hazard, the effects, the various chemical content of that material, the effects should all be imprinted on that material in a way that can easily be understood. Now, this safety data sheet is basically talking about, let's say, for instance, like your fleet or raid that you use in killing mosquitoes and all that, and insects. Now, if you look at the body of that raid, the container, the body, you will see that in it are imprinted various information regarding the content of the raid, the various chemical components, the hazards that it carries, the effect of those hazards, as well as how to handle the fleet itself. You understand? So all those are what the safety data sheet is talking about. Such materials such materials that have the potential for hazard should have all these details well imprinted in them to ensure that workers who are handling them know the content of what they are handling, know the hazard associated with the materials that they are handling. You understand? Then warning labels such as NFPA 700M may be found on chemical materials being used. And this is talking about the National Fire Prevention Association standard for identifying or hazardous materials that are under the condition of fire, spill, and other related or fire incident. So once you see a container or a chemical that has the label of this NFPA, you know that it is fire related or spill related, can result to a fire. It is fire related chemical. Understand? So such label should be warning label for fire hazards and spill hazards should be placed on such chemicals as well. They say do not handle unmarked or unlabeled materials. Any material that you are not sure of what the hazard associated with it that is not labeled or is not marked, do not handle them because you don't know what to expect from it. And they say note oil is a single substance, or there actually are many different kinds of oil. Kind of oil differ in viscosity, volatility, and toxicity. When spilled, the various types of oil can affect the environment differently. Understand? So there are different kind of oil. So we don't just have one kind of oil, there are different kind of oil as well. So next is what is an oil spill? So an oil spill is a release of liquid petroleum hydrocarbon into the environment due to human activities and is a form of pollution. It's a very simple definition. It's basically talking about the release of petroleum hydrocarbon into the environment due to human activities causing pollution. Understand? Now this oil spill could result from accident involving tankers carrying oil, barges, talking about vessel in sea and ocean that are used for transportation, pipelines carrying petroleum, refineries and storage facilities of to why oil is being transported to its users. Then your types of oil. Now we have about 4 types of oil. You have the very light oil, you have the light oils, you have the medium oil and the heavy oil. These are the various type of oil. Now the very light oil is talking about the jet fuel, the gasoline. The jet fuel is more like is the kind of a fuel that is being used to power jet engines and aeroplanes engines. It's more like a kerosene, but very light, lighter than even the kerosene or kerosene itself, and gasoline. You understand? Now, one property that this kind of oil have is that they are very, very volatile. They are highly volatile, so they evaporate within 1 to 2 days. Within 1 to 2 days, they have totally evaporated. You understand? So because they are very light, they easily evaporate into the air. So they are very highly volatile. So they are high in concentration of toxic soluble compounds. Now, this evaporated stuff contain a lot of chemicals that are very, very toxic, more like the benzene, the toluene. These are very toxic compounds that contained in this kind of oil, you understand? And they are also very soluble, understand? So because they are more like into the air, it is easy for them to be consumed by surrounding stores, surrounding things that are surrounding the environment, you understand? So also they are localized severe impact to water column and intertidal resources. Their impact are very severe to those intertidal resources, like talking about your algae, your snail, your crayfish, those little species of animal that you see the shores and uh, around the shores of the rivers and ocean. Understand? Because it's evaporating into the air, it saturates the air. Now these substances that are around these living things around the intertidal areas usually absorb these things and become toxic to them. And at the end, the impact is very, very severe. Then also they say there's no clean up possible. The reason is because within 1 to 2 days it is totally evaporated. So there is nothing actually to clean. So that's for the very light oil that are very volatile, you understand. Then you have the light oils, talking about the diesel, the two fuel oil, and the light crudes. Now the two fuel oil is talking about diesel fuel, you understand, and the light crudes like kerosene and the gasoline that are also very light, you understand. So now I said these are moderately volatile and will leave residual up to 1/3 of spill amount after a few days, you understand. So they are also volatile, but at the end of it, they also leave behind some residual, which means it is not totally evaporated, unlike the very light oils where they totally evaporate. You understand? So at the end of it, when soil spill occur, parts of it are made up of components that are volatile that could evaporate. Understand? While the other parts do not evaporate, they remain on the water surface, which the oil cleanup workers do clean up afterwards. Now it's also moderate. It's a moderate concentration of toxic soluble compounds. Now, because it is not totally evaporated or saturated the air, you understand, it's only part of it that evaporates, you understand. So the remaining part that do not evaporate are not really that toxic unless they get to those intertidal areas or other aquatic animals that are around, you understand. Unlike the light fuel, the light oil that evaporates and go as far as possible, damaging whatever it come in contact with before it totally evaporate out of the air. So in this case, it is moderate concentration of toxic compared to the very light oils. I say will oil interact with long-term contamination potentials. Understand? Now, like we said, it leaves behind some residue. Understand? Now, this residue, when they flow to intertidal areas, they do what the oil does intertidal areas, leaving a long-term contamination potential to those intertidal resources that are around. You understand? So cleanup can be very effective. Understand? So you can actually clean up. Deposits are left behind. So this deposit can easily be cleaned up as well. Now you see the medium oil, talking about most crude oil like your your petrol and all your diesel and all those other kind of crude oils as well. Then say about 1/3 will evaporate within 24 hours. One third of it will evaporate within 24 hours. Oil contamination of intertidal resources can be severe and long term. Understand? Can be severe and long term. Part of it will evaporate. The remaining part could go as far as coming in contact with intertidal resources, leaving severe long-term impacts. It's a long-term contamination of sediment possible. And there is tendency for this oil to also go as far as settling into the water and causing more damages as well. Then weathers very slowly. And this kind of oil are mostly very thick, like we said, your diesel oil and your grease oil and all that. Those are usually very thick and they are very difficult to be broken down by the wave and the intertidal movement of the water and all that. So they usually stick together a lot and difficult to weather. So they weather very slowly. Shoreline cleanup difficult under all conditions. Now, once this oil move to the shore, it is very, very difficult to clean because it stain the whole of the shore and make a mess, making it very difficult to clean as well. Then you have the heavy oil, your heavy crude oil, number 6, fuel and bunker, and the rest of them say little or no evaporation or dissolution. They do not evaporate. They are heavy oil, unlike our light oil and the very light oil that have part of it evaporating or the entire of it, like in the very light oil, evaporating. In this case, there is little or no evaporation. Understand? So it is basically just the whole content settling in the water. Then heavy contamination of intertidal areas. This kind of oil can contaminate the intertidal area a lot because it does not evaporate. Most of it are just there. So it just goes and stain whatever is there to stain. You understand? Then severe impact of the waterfowl and forbearing mammals. Understand? This is talking about uh, fowls, fowl and all these animals that have birds and animals that have fowls that may come in contact with that water. Now, once they come in contact with that oily water, their feathers, like the bird, their feathers become greasy and are wet with the oil. Most of them can no longer fly, and in the long run, most of them end up dying. Understand? Some of these animals, some tend to ingest and swallow some of the particles of the oil, which could also be hazardous, and at the end, they may end up dying or causing severe impact. So this kind of oil basically does not evaporate, is very thick and mess up the whole water and very dangerous to birds and other mammals that have force that the oil can stick to, making life very difficult for such mammals. Then long-term contamination of sediment possible. Weathers very slowly. It's very thick and not weather easily. Shore cleanup is also difficult under all conditions as well. So now the next is what is crude oil? As a crude oil is a mixture of hydrocarbon and consists of light, medium, and heavy chemicals. Understand? I said the hydrocarbon in crude oil are mostly alkane, cycloalkane, and various aromatic hydrocarbon, while the other organic compounds contain nitrogen, oxygen, and sulfur, and trace amount of metals such as iron, nickel, copper, and vanadium. The exact molecular composition varies widely. You understand? So how these various chemicals combine varies. Understand? Varies widely. That's what they are trying to say. May the amount of these chemicals that may combine to form a particular kind of oil maybe differ from the amount that will combine to form another kind of oil as well. You understand? So that's what we are trying to talk about. So the light parts such as the benzene, xylene, toluene, and ethyl benzene generally evaporate into the air within the first 24 hours of spill, usually before even reaching the shore. You understand? That's what we talk about the very light oil. And they usually contain chemicals such as the benzene. They are high in chemicals such as the benzene, xylene, and toluene. Now, these chemicals they evaporate within the first 24 hours, most time before even reaching the shore. Reaching the shore. This is why you see that there is no cleanup possible, as earlier stated. So the medium and the heavy part is what is clean up, what cleanup operation on land and shores area focus on. Understand? So for most of the other kind of oil, like the medium and the heavy, and even the light oil that leave behind some residue, it is those residue that are left behind that are being cleaned by cleanup or operations. Let's say the health hazard exposure. So the health hazard generally associated with crude oil include inhalation of the toxic volatile hydrocarbon component. Like we said, when this volatile substance from the oil are evaporated into the air, if you are exposed to them, there is a tendency of you inhaling some of these dangerous chemical that can cause different health hazard to you as well. So such as the benzene and also dermatitis from repeated or prolonged skin contact that can cause dermatitis or skin cancer. You understand? Maybe probably during the cleanup process, you come in contact with this oil stains on your body and all that. When you are exposed to these oil components, over a period of time it may lead to dermatitis or even skin cancer. That's what they're talking about. So be cautious during cleanup operation. If you are unsure, ask your supervisor before proceeding. Make sure you take a lot of care because most of these hazard or these chemicals involved in these hydrocarbon component are very hazardous and can cause a lot of ill health and sicknesses that may even lead to death if care is not taken. Then we say weathered crude oil. So weathered crude oil is the crude oil petroleum that has lost an appreciable quantity of its more volatile component and has mixed with seawater and organic matters. Understand? Now this weathered crude oil is talking about the breaking down of the oil. Understand? Now when the oil come in contact with, maybe when the oil spill on the water bodies, there is tendency for different things to work on it. Sometimes you will see the evaporation, some of it will evaporate, some will even break up and become like droplets depending on the kind of oil, you understand? So different chemicals and physical activities work on them to break down the oil in some cases, you understand? So it is this breakdown of this oil, either through evaporation or through other physical or chemical means, that is being referred to as the crude oil being weathered, you understand? So weathered crude oil is basically talking about the breaking down of what? Of the oil due to physical or chemical properties as a result of the mixture of the oil with other materials, organic or inorganic materials. So this is caused by evaporation and other natural causes during the spill landing on the shore and during oil waste handling, storage, treatment, or disposal. So the various type of oil define how the weather chemically and physically change when exposed to the elements. Understand? So when they are exposed to, once they are exposed to the environment, they mix with different kind of chemicals, even right from the air, which is oxygen in the air. They start mixing, and the reactions are different. They mix with the water bodies, they mix with so many other organic and inorganic. So even when they come to shore, they mix with sand and so many other substances and any other elements that change its physical and chemical appearance as well. There's a health risk of weathered crude oil. Health risk associated with working while exposed to weathered crude oil include the following: potential dermatitis hazard from skin contact. During the cleanup process, like I said earlier, there is tendency for you to be exposed, for your skin to be exposed to the oil, and consistent exposure may lead to skin diseases, you understand? Then inhaling oil droplets slash particles put into the air during cleanup operation may be irritating to the eye, nose, and throat and lungs. During the cleanup process, you understand, there may be tendency for some of the oil component to spill in your eyes, your nose, or your mouth, and all this can cause different kind of illnesses. Then evaporation that occur during the first 24 to 48 hours after the spill greatly reduce inhalation hazard from the toxic volatile components such as benzene. Now, usually when there's an exposure for especially for the for the medium and light crude oil, some part, which is the volatile part of it, are evaporated. You understand? Due to that evaporation, if you are not exposed at that point, maybe you don't get exposed at that initial point. After a while, those things will evaporate off. They will evaporate and go into the sky and evaporate just like that, making that place to be so that place will become free from any of such hazards, from the hazard associated with those benzene and the rest of them. You understand? So that period where those benzene and the other light volatile chemicals evaporate, it removes a lot of those substances that could also cause some kind of health issues as well. So even if the air sampling show no detectable level or very low level of volatile organic compounds, the VOCs, there still may be health effect. You understand? That is where the air sampling comes in. Always ensure that the air is properly, you sample the air properly before workers are exposed, to ensure that every of such chemicals are properly out of the air before workers are exposed. But even at that, despite the sampling, still ensure to take precaution, put on the necessary uh, PPE to ensure that you do not get exposed to even if it is a little one that is left, you do not get exposed to it. Understand? So we'll end here for today, and we'll meet again. Thank you very much.